They snatched my daughter, 3 fake cops with Party City badges, yanked my 14-year-old Emma into a black van on a Tuesday morning while I was at work, thinking I'd crumble like some terrified suburban dad and pay whatever they demanded. They couldn't have been more wrong. Beneath these cargo shorts beats the heart of the guy who trains America's most elite soldiers, and they were about to learn just how deadly the most unassuming neighbor can be. Let's rewind to a sticky Monday morning at 6 a.m. where Emma and I were in the garage running through our daily ritual, basic self-defense drills I'd insisted on since her mum passed. "Twist against the thumb," I coached, gripping her wrist firmly. "It's always the weak spot." She broke free with ease, flashing a proud grin. "Dad, why do we have to do this every morning? We're in suburbia, not Afghanistan." Her words stung deeper than I let on. Her mother, Sarah, would still be here if she'd known how to free herself from a jammed seatbelt after that crash. A drunk driver walked away unscathed, while my wife drowned in just 3 feet of water, trapped by a buckle that wouldn't budge. "Because I never want you to be helpless," I told her, my voice steady but heavy. "Ever." Stay tuned for what happens next. Which city of the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you've had any confrontation with the HOA. We'll narrate your story on our channel. Our training was interrupted by the sharp sound of heels on concrete. Dorothy Hampton, our HOA president, marched up our driveway like she owned it, which in her mind she probably did. Dorothy treated our neighborhood like her personal kingdom, and the rest of us like unruly subjects. "Mr. from Mitchell," she barked. "Do you have any idea what time it is? 6:07. The noise ordinance doesn't lift until 7 a.m. sharp." I straightened slowly, keeping my expression neutral. 20 years of military service had taught me that the most dangerous response is often no response at all. "Morning, Dorothy. We'll keep it down." But her eyes had already found something else to rage about. Emma's mural on our garage wall. My daughter had spent weeks on it. A beautiful rainforest scene with exotic birds and cascading water. It was gorgeous, and it was hers. "What is this vandalism?" Dorothy's voice went up an octave, her finger stabbing at the air. "This is graffiti, a clear violation of HOA regulation 17-3. You have defaced property and destroyed our neighborhood's aesthetic standards." Emma stepped forward, confused but defiant. "But it's our wall on our property." "Silence, child. Your father will be paying a $5,000 fine for this destruction. And if this eyesore isn't removed within 24 hours, I'll report this to the Environmental Protection Agency as illegal chemical contamination." I felt my jaw tighten, but kept my voice level. Years of dealing with hostile combatants had taught me that anger clouds judgment. "That's our wall, Dorothy. Emma Ard isn't hurting anyone." Dorothy whipped out her phone and started taking pictures. "We'll see what the board thinks about that. And mark my words, Mr. Mitchell, I have ways of making sure people follow the rules in my neighborhood." She spun on her heel and marched away, already dialing someone. If I had been paying closer attention, I might have noticed the satisfied smirk on her face, might have wondered why she seemed so pleased with herself. But I was focused on Emma, who looked like she might cry. "Don't let her get to you," I said, pulling my daughter into a hug. "Some people are so miserable they can't stand to see others happy." Emma hugged me back. "I worked really hard on that mural, Dad. I know, sweetheart. And it's beautiful. We're not taking it down." That evening, after I'd returned from Fort Benning, where I spent my days turning eager recruits into green, Barrett's Emma and I worked on extending her mural to another section of the wall. If Dorothy wanted a fight, she'd get one. But it would be on my terms, fought with permits and property law, not violence. At least that was the plan. Emma had inherited her mother's artistic talent and my stubborn streak. A dangerous combination. We painted until well past dark, adding a section with nocturnal animals and a starry sky. "Dad," Emma said, as she added spots to a jaguar, "why does Mrs. Hampton hate kids so much?" I'd wondered the same thing. "I don't know, Em. Some people are just broken inside. If only I'd known how broken Dorothy really was, and what lengths she'd go to in her crusade against families with children." That night, as we cleaned up our paint supplies, I noticed something odd. A van drove slowly past our house, no plates visible in the darkness. It could have been nothing, should have been nothing, but 20 years of threat assessment had given me instincts I couldn't turn off. I made a mental note to check our security cameras in the morning. "Time for bed, kiddo," I said, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. "You've got that art presentation at school tomorrow, right?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "I'm showing photos of the mural Mrs. Patterson says I might win the district competition." I smiled and ruffled her hair. "That's my girl. Now get some sleep." As I locked up the house and set the alarm, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Maybe it was Dorothy's threat, or that suspicious fan, or just the hypervigilance that never quite goes away after years in combat zones. Whatever it was, I double-checked every lock and made sure Emma's panic button was charged and on her nightstand. Paranoid maybe, but paranoia had kept me alive through 3 tours in Afghanistan and countless operations in places I couldn't talk about. And now it was all I had to keep my daughter safe in what should have been the safest place in the world, our own home. I didn't know that in less than 12 hours, those instincts would be the only thing standing between my daughter and something unthinkable. Tuesday morning came too early, as always. My alarm went off at 4:30 and I was on the road to Fort Benning by 5. The pre-dawn drive gave me time to think, to transition from Ryan, the suburban dad, to Instructor Mitchell, the man responsible for turning raw recruits into the Army's most elite special operators. That morning's training block was urban infiltration, and I had 30 eager Green Beret candidates waiting to learn how to become ghosts in hostile cities. In an urban environment, I told them as we gathered in the training facility, threats can come from anywhere. The sweet old lady feeding pigeons might be spotting for enemy snipers. The businessman in the suit could have a bomb vest under his jacket. Paranoia isn't a mental illness in our line of work. It's a survival skill. One of my best students, Jackson, raised his hand. "What about when we're back home, instructor? How do we turn it off?" I paused, thinking about the van from last night, about Dorothy's threats. You don't turn it off, Jackson. You just learn to live with it, and you make sure the people you love know how to protect themselves when you're not there. I was demonstrating how to spot surveillance in a crowd when my watch buzzed, not a normal notification. 3 sharp pulses, Emma's panic button, the one I'd given her after Sarah died, the one she'd promised to only use in a real emergency. My blood turned to ice. Everything about my body language must have changed, because the entire class took a step back. "Instructor?" Jackson asked, concerned in his voice. "Is everything classes dismissed?" I said, already moving toward the door. "Jackson, you're running the rest of today's training." "Sir, what about the demonstration?" I turned back and whatever he saw in my eyes made him stop talking. "There's about to be a real-world demonstration, son. Pray you never have to see it." I was in my truck and moving before I even consciously decided to leave. My phone rang as I hit the highway, the school's automated system. "Your child, Emma Mitchell, has been marked absent from first period." No. I called Emma's phone, straight to voicemail. Called the house, no answer. My hands wanted to shake, but I wouldn't let them. Emotion was a luxury I couldn't afford right now. Then I checked the GPS on Emma's bracelet, the one designed to fall off if grabbed forcefully. The signal was coming from our house, stationary. But her watch's panic signal was moving, heading toward the Willowbrook HOA office. I forced myself to think tactically. Dorothy had threatened us yesterday. Emma's panic button had been activated at 7:30, right when she'd be leaving for school. The HOA office was 5 minutes from our house. Someone had taken my daughter, and I had a pretty good idea who was behind it. I made one call as I drove. "Rodriguez, it's Mitchell, code black." Maria Rodriguez and I had served together in Afghanistan. Before she became a detective, she'd understand what code black meant. Family member in immediate danger. "How many bodies should I expect?" she asked, without hesitation. "Depends on how smart they are," I replied, weaving through traffic at speeds. That would have impressed my NASCAR-loving brother. "I'm 20 minutes out, Ryan." "Don't do anything. 20 minutes is 19 too long. Just be ready for cleanup." I hung up and focused on driving. Someone had taken Emma. Someone had made the last mistake of their life. Back in Willowbrook, 30 minutes before I got that alert, Emma had been having breakfast alone like always. She was reviewing her notes for the art presentation when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, she saw 3 men in police uniforms. Something was off about them, though. Their badges looked wrong, and one had his upside down. "Police open!" "Up," the lead one called. Emma was too smart to fall for it. "Can I see some identification through the peephole, please?" The man held up a badge that looked like it came from a costume shop. "Sergeant Crawford, HOA Enforcement Division. We need to speak with you about vandalism charges." My brilliant daughter knew immediately something was wrong. "There's no such thing as HOA Enforcement Division," she said through the door. "And real police would know that impersonating an officer is a federal crime punishable by up to 3 years in prison." There was silence outside. Then Crawford spoke again, anger creeping into his voice. "Look, kid, just open the door. We have a warrant for your arrest. Then slide it under the door so I can read it." Emma shot back. "That's protocol, right? Or did you forget that part of your YouTube police training video? That's when they decided to drop the act." "Break it down," Crawford ordered. The biggest of the 3 charged the door. It burst inward with a crack that probably woke the whole neighborhood. What happened next made me proud, even as it terrified me. Emma fought exactly like I'd taught her. When the first man grabbed her wrist, she twisted against his thumb and broke free, then drove her knee into his solar plexus. He went down, gasping, but she was 14 years old, facing 3 grown men. It was never going to be a fair fight. Crawford grabbed her from behind while she was fighting his partner, got her, cuff her. This is protocol. Even in his victory, the idiot couldn't sell his fake cop act. But Emma wasn't done. Before they overpowered her, she managed 3 crucial things. First, she hit the panic button on her watch, 3 quick presses that would send an emergency signal directly to me. Second, she let her bracelet fall into the bushes by the door, knowing I'd track it. And third, she yelled as loud as she could, "1247 Maple Street, help, these aren't real police." One of Crawford's partners put his hand over her mouth as they dragged her toward a black van with no plates. Emma bit him hard enough to draw blood. He yelped and pulled back, giving her one last chance to speak. What she said next probably saved her life, though she didn't know it at the time. Looking directly at Crawford, she said in a voice cold enough to freeze hell, "My dad trains people to kill for a living, and you just gave him a reason to remember how it's done." Crawford's face went pale for just a moment before anger took over. "Your dad's just some paper pusher. Dorothy says he won't do nothing." They shoved her into the van and slammed the doors. As they drove away, Emma stayed calm, cataloguing everything she could see. 3 fake cops, one with a snake tattoo on his neck. Black van, no plates, headed north. Small camera mounted on the dashboard pointed at her. They were recording this. She tested her restraints. Zip ties, not real handcuffs. Amateurs. Her dad would find her. She knew it with the same certainty she knew the sun would rise tomorrow. These idiots had no idea what they'd just started. Neither did she, really. But she was about to find out exactly what happened when someone was stupid enough to threaten the daughter of a man they called the Ghost. The drive from Fort Benning to Willowbrook usually took 45 minutes. I made it in 25, my mind running through every possible scenario. Someone had taken Emma. The HOA office location suggested Dorothy's involvement, but this was bigger than suburban politics. No HOA president, no matter how power-drunk, would fake a police operation without help. As I drove, I forced the father in me to take a back seat. Right now, Emma didn't need a dad. She needed the Ghost, the operator who'd extracted 37 hostages from impossible situations, who'd hunted terrorists through mountains and cities, who'd earned a reputation for always bringing his people home. "Stay calm, baby girl," I whispered, knowing she couldn't hear me. "Daddy's coming." I pulled over 3 blocks from the HOA office and took 30 seconds to center myself. Emotion was the enemy of effective action. From my go bag under the passenger seat, the one Emma always teased me about keeping, I pulled out a few essential TE items: wireless listening devices, a tactical flashlight, zip tie cuffs, and my old Glock 19 that I really wasn't supposed to have in my personal vehicle. Old habits die hard, and right now I was grateful for every paranoid bone in my body. I parked at the community center and approached on foot through the jogging trail that wound behind the HOA building. 3 years of morning runs had taught me every blind spot, every camera angle, every approach route. As I moved, I placed tiny listening devices along the building's exterior. Each one was smaller than a button, virtually invisible unless you knew what to look for. From my position behind the maintenance shed, I had clear sight lines to the parking lot. Dorothy's white Mercedes, no surprise there, a beat-up Honda that probably belonged to one of her lackeys, and a black van with no plates. My jaw clenched. Same van from last night. I pulled out my phone and accessed our home security system. Sure enough, there it was at 7:28 a.m. 3 men in fake police uniforms approaching my door. I watched my brave girl try to handle the situation. Watched her fight, watched them take her. The father and me wanted to charge in, guns blazing, but that would probably get Emma hurt. I needed intel first. The first bug came online, picking up voices from inside. Dorothy's shrill voice cut through clearly. "Where is he? It's been 45 minutes. You said he'd come running." A male voice. Had to be Crawford based on the snake tattoo I'd seen on the security footage. Maybe he ran. I would if the sharp sound of a slap. "He's a father, you idiot." "Fathers don't abandon their children. He'll come." Then a voice that made my chest tight. Emma calm but with steel underneath. "You're right. He will come, but not how you think." Dorothy's response was predictable. "Shut up, brat." But then Emma laughed, actually laughed. My girl had inherited her mother's courage and my tactical mind. "Miss Hampton, you took his daughter. Do you know what happened to the last people who took someone's daughter from a special forces operator?" The bug picked up silence. Then Emma's voice again. "Colder now? Neither does anyone else. They were never found." Part of me wanted to smile. That's my girl, I thought. Work the psychological angle, make them nervous. Nervous people make mistakes. But then I heard something that changed the game entirely. Car doors slamming. Crawford's voice, tense. "Boss, we got company. Black SUVs. That's real cops." But I knew better. Real cops would have marked vehicles, visible light bars, proper procedure. These were something else. I needed backup. and I knew just who to call. Tyler, one of my former students, lived in Atlanta now. He'd been with me in Kandahar when things went sideways. One of the few people I'd trust in a situation like this. Tyler, it's Mitchell. Remember that favor you owe me, always, sir. What do you need? Overwatch position, Willowbrook HOA building, possible hostage situation. How fast can you get here? 7 minutes if I obey traffic laws. Don't. I ended the call and refocused on the bugs. The situation inside was deteriorating fast. A new voice had joined the conversation.
Female, calm, professional. Dorothy, you need to calm down. Stick to the plan. What plan? Dorothy screeched. He hasn't shown up, and now there are those of my people, the woman interrupted. Insurance in case your hired help fails, which, from
what I'm seeing, they are. This was definitely bigger than Dorothy. Someone was using her, but for what? The woman continued. This is a test run, Dorothy. We needed to see how a targeted family would respond. So far, your performance has been disappointing. Test run. My blood ran cold. How many other neighborhoods were they doing this in? How many other families? Through my compact binoculars, I caught movement in a window. Emma, zip-tied to a chair, in what looked like the conference room. He appeared unharmed, but was doing something with her feet, tapping. I focused and read the pattern. Morse code. BDACAMERALIVESTREAM. They were broadcasting this. Why? I pulled out my phone again, this time accessing some of the darker corners of the internet. It took 2 minutes of searching before I found it. A live stream titled Tester. Run Willowbrook. 17 viewers and climbing. The chat was active. Is this real? When does the father show up? This is boring. Make the girl cry. I screenshot everything and sent it to Maria. Then noticed something else. The stream had a small logo. In the corner, hi, with a house symbol, Homestead Initiative. I'd heard whispers about them in intelligence briefings, extremist group targeting diverse neighborhoods, trying to purify suburbs. But they'd always been considered more talk than action. Apparently, that had changed. Through the stream I watched Emma continue her Morse code tapping, READYORMOVE. My brilliant, brave daughter was telling me she was prepared for whatever came next. Trust went both ways in our family. Time to show her I was worthy of hers. Tyler's text came through. In position, north side, clear shot of all exits. Count 7 tangos. 2 look professional. Want me to call in more friends? I considered it. 7 hostiles, unknown weapons. Emma in the middle. In Afghanistan, I'd have called in an entire strike team, but this was suburban Atlanta, not a war zone. We needed to be surgical. Negative. Hold position and wait for my signal. 5 minutes. I stood up, brushed off my clothes, and did something that would have seemed insane to any operator watching. I walked straight toward the front door of the HOA office. No tactical approach, no weapons visible, just a worried father coming to check on his daughter. But underneath the suburban dad exterior, the ghost was fully awake. Muscle memory from 1,000 missions flooded back. Time slowed down the way it always did before contact. I could feel where Tyler was positioned, knew Maria was racing here with backup, sensed the rhythm of the situation like a song I'd heard before. They wanted
Ryan Mitchell, worried father.
They were about to get him, but they were also about to meet the man who'd spent 20 years perfecting the art of violence, who'd turned killing into a science and survival into an instinct, the man who'd promised his dying wife he'd always protect, their daughter. I knocked on the door politely, like I was arriving for a PTA meeting. Through the glass, I saw Crawford jump like he'd been electrocuted. Dorothy nodded sharply. The door opened. "Mr. Mitchell," Crawford said, trying to look intimidating. "Took you long enough." I stepped inside, letting my eyes go wide with worry. I got a call that my daughter was here. Something about vandalism charges. Inside, I was counting. 7 hostiles confirmed, 2 exits plus windows. Emma, 20 FT away, conscious and alert. The chessboard was set. Time to play. And I never lost when Emma was on the line. I let my shoulders slump as I entered, playing the part of the worried father. "Please, I just want to understand what's happening. Emma's never been in trouble before." Dorothy strutted forward like a peacock, her face glowing with triumph. "Your delinquent daughter has been detained pending payment of fines and your written agreement to comply with all HOA regulations." I let my eyes find Emma. She was zip-tied to an office chair, surrounded by Crawford and his 2 fake cop buddies. To anyone else she might have looked scared, but I saw the sharp awareness in her eyes. The way she was cataloguing every detail. I blinked a message in Morse code. "STAYREADY, she blinked back. "LWAY, my girl." $15,000, I said, letting my voice crack. "I don't have that kind of money just sitting around." Dorothy's smile was predatory. "Then you'd better find it, or I'll have no choice but to turn your daughter over to the real authorities for prosecution." Real authorities, right? I glanced at Crawford, taking in the details. Snake tattoo crawling up his neck. Stance of someone who'd watched too many action movies. The way he kept touching his holstered weapon like it was a security blanket. Time
to have some fun. "That's an interesting tattoo," I said, conversationally. "Snake wrapped around a skull. Very tactical. You military?"
Crawford's chest puffed up. "Army, Special Forces. Oh, cow, this was going to be too easy." "Really? Which group?" "I have some friends in 5th Group down at Campbell." Crawford's tell was immediate. That little eye dart to the left that screamed incoming.
"Lie, 3rd Group, Fort Bragg. We did classified stuff." I nodded thoughtfully, letting him dig his hole deeper.
3rd Group. Impressive. They specialize in Africa operations, right? Sub-Saharan missions, mostly? Yeah, exactly. Crawford jumped on what he thought was a lifeline. Africa. Did 3 tours there. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That's fascinating. Because when I was at Bragg, 3rd Group's area of operations was Central and South America. Africa is 1st Group's territory, but hey, maybe they changed things after I left. The color drained from Crawford's face like someone had pulled a plug. Dorothy, oblivious to the danger, snapped her fingers. "Enough chit-chat. Do you have the
money or not?" I turned my attention to her, noticing the framed photo on her desk. A middle-aged man with kind eyes. Her late husband, probably. Pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. "I'll need to go home to get it," I said. "It's in my safe."
"Bruce will accompany you," Dorothy said, gesturing to Crawford to ensure you don't try anything stupid. Bruce. So Crawford had a first name. Good to know. I looked back at him, watching sweat bead on his forehead. Of course. "Hey, Bruce, just out."
"Of curiosity, what was your military job?" He straightened, trying to reclaim some authority.
18. Bravo, Special Forces Weapons Sergeant. Another lie. 18 Bravo was one of the most challenging specialties in Special Forces. This guy probably couldn't spell Weapons Sergeant without autocorrect. "Impressive," I said, maintaining my impressed. "Suburban Dad Act, you must be excited about the new SOP Mod Block 3 upgrades they're rolling out." Bruce nodded eagerly. "Oh yeah, the Block 3, great weapon. Full auto, 50 caliber laser guided. Every single word was wrong. The M4A1 SOP mod was 556 caliber select fire, and definitely not laser guided, but I kept my expression neutral, filing away his ignorance for later use. From the conference room, Emma coughed. A normal person would hear just a cough, but I heard the pattern. Morse code again. FAKECOPSREALSOON. My daughter had figured out something I'd missed. These morons had probably tripped some. Silent alarm, or someone had called 911. Real law enforcement was inbound, which meant this situation was about to get complicated. "We should go," I said to Bruce. "The sooner we get the money, the sooner this is resolved." Dorothy waved us toward the door, already counting her imaginary winnings. As we walked, I caught Emma's eye again. She winked, actually winked, then deliberately looked at the two tactical guys by the door up at the ceiling, then tapped her foot 3 times. I followed her gaze and spotted it. A small camera, the kind used for streaming, but more importantly, I saw what she'd noticed about the two professionals. Their stance was wrong. Weight distribution, like they were used to. Standing still for long periods. Trigger discipline was textbook, literally like they'd learned from a manual. Weapons clean, but not worn. These weren't operators, these were gamers, probably hired from some airsoft team. "Actually," I said, stopping at the door, "I just remembered I moved the money to my investment account. I can transfer it right now if you have banking details." Dorothy's eyes lit up with greed. "Of course, Bruce. Bring him back." As we turned, I saw Emma's smile. The same smile she'd had at 6 when she'd figured out how to get past the child locks I'd installed. My daughter was about to do something unexpected. The sirens were maybe 2 minutes out now. Dorothy heard them too, her face going pale. "What did you do?" she screeched at me. "Nothing," I said, honestly. "But it sounds like someone wasn't as careful as they thought." Bruce reached for his weapon. That's when Emma made her move. "Hey, Bruce," she called out sweetly. "Want to see something cool?" She stood up. The zip ties fell away. She'd been working on them the entire time, just like I'd taught her. Lesson 5. Any restraint is just a puzzle waiting to be solved. The room erupted in chaos. Dorothy screamed. Bruce fumbled for his weapon. The two gamers didn't know whether to move toward Emma or maintain their positions. And my daughter stood in the middle of it all, calm as a spring morning. "Lesson 8 from Dad," she announced cheerfully. "Always let the enemy think they're
Winning! It makes them careless!" Dorothy screamed again. Bruce finally got his hand on his weapon, and that's when I decided playtime was over. "Bruce," I said quietly, "in about 30 seconds, you're going to have to decide whether you want to
be arrested for kidnapping or for kidnapping and assaulting a federal officer. Choose wisely." The sirens were getting louder. Emma had positioned herself perfectly, far enough from the fake cops that they couldn't grab her, close enough to the computer that she could reach it if needed. My brilliant tactical genius of a daughter. "Federal officer," Bruce squeaked. "You said you were just—" "I said I worked at Fort Benning," I corrected. "I never said doing what. Instructor Mitchell, Defense Intelligence Agency, embedded with Special Forces Training Command. My credentials are in my truck if you'd like to see them." It was mostly true. I did have DIA credentials, though I rarely used them. The beauty of a good lie is mixing it with enough truth that people don't question the parts that matter. Bruce's hand fell away from his weapon. Choice. The two gamers were already backing toward the exit, and Dorothy was having what could charitably be called a complete mental breakdown. The room was balanced on a knife's edge. One
wrong move and it would explode into violence. But I had Emma back on her feet. The real cop seconds away and Bruce looking like he might wet himself. Sometimes the best strategy is to let chaos do your work for you.
"Emma," I said calmly, "remember what I taught you about dynamic situations?" She grinned. "When in doubt, create a diversion. That's my girl." The front windows of the HOA office faced the parking lot. The sirens were maybe 15 seconds out, and Bruce was still standing there, frozen by indecision and fear. Time for the grand finale. "Oh, Bruce," I said, conversationally. "One more thing. That live stream camera your employer set up. It's been broadcasting everything, including your face, your fake badge number, and that impressive list of military lies. Might want to think about that before you do anything else stupid." His eyes went wide. Dorothy spun toward the camera. The gamers actually did run for the exit.
And Emma, my wonderful, brilliant daughter, sat down at Dorothy's computer and started typing. "Dad, I'm saving everything, the whole stream, all of it." That's when the real police arrived. And that's when things got really interesting. The first
Police cruiser screeched into the parking lot just as the two tactical gamers reached the door. They took one look at the real cops and immediately put their hands up. Smart boys. They knew the difference between airsoft and actual prison time. Dorothy, on the other hand, completely lost it. She lunged for her desk drawer, yanking out a pearl-handled .38 special that looked like it hadn't been fired since the
Reagan administration. "Everyone stay back," she shrieked, waving the gun like she was conducting an orchestra. "I'm in charge here." I didn't move, didn't even shift my weight. 20 years of having weapons pointed at me had taught me the difference.
between someone ready to shoot and someone having a tantrum. "That's not loaded, Dorothy," I said calmly. She swung the gun toward me, her eyes wild. "How would you know?" Emma stood up from the computer, and when she spoke, her voice carried something I recognized. Her mother's absolute fearlessness in the face of danger, because I unloaded it just now when you were screaming at Dad. It was a lie. Of course, Emma had been at the computer the whole time, but Dorothy didn't know that. Her face went through confusion, rage, then disbelief. She pulled the trigger. Click, click, click. Empty chambers, just like I'd suspected. Someone like Dorothy would have a gun for show, but would never bother to keep it loaded. "Lesson 12, Emma announced cheerfully. "Know your enemy's weapons better than they do." Then louder now, the lights went out. Tyler had been waiting for that signal and delivered perfectly. One suppressed shot through the junction box outside.
Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red, but in that split second of darkness, several things happened. Emma dove behind the desk. I moved to put myself between her and any threats, and someone else entered the
room. When the emergency lights came on, Maria Rodriguez stood in the doorway in full tactical gear, weapon drawn and badge displayed. "Federal agent, nobody move." The fake cops froze. Bruce looked like he might faint. And Dorothy stood there, still clicking her empty gun like it might magically reload itself. "Drop the weapon," Maria commanded. Dorothy let the gun fall from nerveless.
fingers. "This isn't you can't. I have rights." "You sure do," Maria said, moving into the room with textbook precision.
"You have the right to remain silent. Might want to start using it." More real police poured in, quickly taking control of the scene. Bruce and his buddies were face down on the floor before they could even process what was happening. The two gamers were already cuffed and looking like they deeply regretted their life choices. But something was bothering me. This had been too easy. The live stream, the fake cops, Dorothy's breakdown, it all felt like theatre, like we were playing parts in
someone else's script.
That's when Bruce's phone, lying where it had fallen, lit up with a message. The words on the screen made my blood run cold. "Package compromised. Activating protocol. 7 Emma," I said quietly. "Save whatever you're saving and get away from that computer now." She heard the tone in my voice and immediately backed away, clutching a flash drive. "Got it all, Dad? The whole stream, chat logs, even some IP addresses. Good girl." But we needed to move. In my experience, anything called Protocol 7 was never. Good news, Maria, we need to clear the building now. She looked at me, saw something in my expression, and didn't argue. Everyone out. Bomb squad protocols, move. We evacuated quickly but carefully. I kept Emma close, my body between her and the building. The real cops were efficient, moving the prisoners and clearing the area in under 2
minutes. We just reached the parking lot when the first explosion hit. Not the building, Dorothy's Mercedes. The luxury car went up in a fireball that knocked several people to the ground. Then the van exploded, then the Honda. Someone was destroying
evidence, and they weren't being subtle about it. Down, everyone down. I covered Emma with my body as debris rained from the sky. Through the smoke and chaos, I heard sirens. More police, fire department, probably ATF given the explosions. Whatever the Homestead Initiative was, they just announced themselves in a big way. When the smoke cleared, I did a quick assessment. No casualties, minor injuries only. The HOA building was intact, but the parking lot looked like a war zone. And Dorothy Hampton was having a complete psychological breakdown, screaming about her car, her organization, her plans. They promised, she wailed, as EMTs checked her for injuries. They said if I got rid of the families with children, they'd make Willowbrook perfect. They promised. Maria appeared at my shoulder. Ryan, what the hell did we just step in? I showed her Bruce's phone, the Protocol 7 message still glowing on the screen. Something bigger than a suburban HOA dispute. Emma saved the live stream before they could delete it. 100+ viewers watching them try to kidnap a federal officer's daughter. You're not really close enough for government work. We need to get that flash drive to someone who can analyze it properly. Emma pressed closer to my side. Dad, there's something else. While I was saving the stream, I saw other active feeds. At least 6, all labeled Tester Run with different neighborhood names. 6 other neighborhoods, 6 other families potentially under threat right now. The Homestead Initiative wasn't just targeting us. We were part of something much larger. A test run, the woman on the bug had said, but a test for what? Tyler, I said into my calm, you still on Overwatch? Affirmative. Nice fireworks show. I count 3 vehicles approaching from the north. Black SUVs moving fast. More players coming to the party, but were they cleanup crew or reinforcements? Maria, we need to get Emma somewhere safe. My house, she offered immediately. Full security system, and my partner's there, ex-Rangers. He'll be thrilled to have something to do besides crossword puzzles. I looked down at Emma. She was pale but steady, still clutching that flash drive like it was made of gold, which in intelligence terms it might be. You okay, sweetheart? She managed a small smile. Better than Bruce. Did you see his face when you said federal officer? I thought his eyes were going to pop out like a cartoon. Leave it to my daughter to find humor in the middle of chaos. Sarah would have been proud. Hell, I was proud. Let's move, Maria said. Those SUVs Tyler spotted are about 30 seconds out. We loaded into Maria's unmarked car just as the black vehicle screamed into what was left of the parking lot. Through the rear window I watched tactical teams deploy, but something was off. They moved toward the building, but their focus seemed to be on Dorothy and the fake cops, not on pursuing us. Cleanup crew, then making sure loose lips didn't sink ships. Dad, Emma said quietly as we drove away. This isn't over, is it? I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. No, baby, but we've got their playbook now, and they just learned that messing with our family was the worst mistake they could make. She leaned into me, and for a moment, she was just my little girl again, not the tactical genius who'd outsmarted 3 grown men and saved crucial intelligence. What's Protocol 7? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. But we're going to find out, and then we're going to stop them. Because that's what we did. Sarah was gone, but her spirit lived on in our daughter, and anyone who threatened Emma was about to learn why some soldiers became legends. The Homestead Initiative wanted to play games, fine, but they'd chosen the wrong family to play with. The ghost was fully awake now, and he was angry. Maria's safe house was a modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that screamed, "Nothing interesting here," which made it perfect. Her partner Tom met us at the door, 6'4", a former Army Ranger with alert eyes and steady hands. "This is the package that's got half of Atlanta PD running around with their hair on fire," he asked. "Tom, meet Emma." "Emma, this is the second best marksman in Georgia." Emma, despite everything, managed to look offended. "Second best?" Tom grinned. "Your dad's the first man could shoot the wings off a fly at 300 YD. While they secured the house, I finally had a moment to think. Emma was safe. The flash drive was intact, but something was nagging at me. Dorothy's breakdown had been too complete, too convenient. In my experience, true believers didn't break that easily. "Dad," Emma said, pulling out her laptop. "Want to see what we're really dealing with?" She plugged in the flash drive and pulled up the saved stream. Watching it again, knowing Emma was safe beside me, I could analyze it properly. The camera, angles, the positioning, the way Dorothy kept checking her phone, it was all choreographed. "This was meant to go differently," I said. "Look at Dorothy's face when you break free. That's not just surprise that someone watching their script fall apart." Emma nodded, clicking through files. "And look at this, the chat logs." Most viewers joined right at 7:30, like they knew exactly when the show would start. Maria joined us, looking over our shoulders. "So this was what? Performance art, reality TV for sickos, a proof of concept," I corrected. "They wanted to show potential supporters that they could remove undesirable families using HOA regulations and fake authority figures. Make it look legal enough that neighbors wouldn't interfere." Except they didn't count on their target being
able to fight back, Tom added. Both of them. Emma pulled up another file. "Dad, look at this. IP addresses from the viewers. They're all over the country, but there's a pattern. Clusters around wealthy suburban areas, places with strong HOA presence."
I studied the data. 6 other active streams, dozens of viewers in specific locations. The Homestead Initiative wasn't just running tests. They were recruiting, showing potential cells what was possible. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello, Mr. Mitchell." Female voice, calm and professional. "The same one from the bugs at the HOA office. I assume your daughter is safe." "She is." "No point in games, and your operation is blown." "One cell is compromised," she corrected. Dorothy was always expendable. Unstable people usually are. But she served her purpose, which was to test responses, to see how modern families react when faced with quasi-legal pressure. Your response was illuminating. I put the phone on speaker, gesturing for Emma to record. "Glad we could entertain you," the woman laughed. "Oh, you did more than that. You showed us exactly what we're up against. Military families, trained responses. It's valuable data." "Ha, here's some free data," I said. "Said, touch my daughter."
"Again, and I'll hunt down every single one of you." "Will you?" How delightful, the righteous father protecting his cub. It's almost admirable. Her tone shifted, becoming harder. "But consider this.
We have cells in 73 neighborhoods across 12 states. Can you protect all those children, Mr. Mitchell? Can you be everywhere at once?" The line went dead. Emma looked at me, her young face serious. 73 neighborhoods, Dad, that's a lot of families. It was too many for one man to handle, but I wasn't just one man anymore. I had resources, contacts, a network built over 20 years of service. Time to use them. Maria, I need everything you can get on the Homestead Initiative, financial records, membership lists, anything. She was already reaching for her laptop on it. Tom, call Martinez at the FBI. Tell him we've got domestic terrorism with interstate commerce angles. He loves that stuff. While they worked, I made my own calls. Former teammates, retired operators, men and women who'd sworn oaths to defend against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The Homestead Initiative thought they were dealing with scared suburban families. They were about to meet something else entirely. 2 hours later, we had a war room running in Maria's dining room, laptops, phones, maps of the affected neighborhoods. Emma had cross-referenced the IP addresses with property records, building a picture of the initiative structure. They're not random, she explained, pointing at the map. Look, every targeted neighborhood is within 30 minutes of a major city. All have average home values over 500,000. All have HOAs with broad enforcement powers. They're picking battlegrounds where they have advantages. Smart girl. She'd inherited her mother's analytical mind along with my tactical instincts. So, we take away their advantages, I said. Emma, can you get into their communications? She grinned. Already did. They're using encrypted channels, but they made one mistake. They're routing through the same servers that hosted the streams. I've got partial access. By evening, we had enough intelligence to move. The initiative was planning synchronized operations in 12 neighborhoods for the following Tuesday. Fake cops, HOA violations, frightened families who'd pay anything to make problems go away. Or worse, families who'd simply leave rather than fight. But they'd made a crucial error. They'd shown their hand to the wrong people. Every special operator I'd called had the same response. When do we move? Because this wasn't about politics or suburban drama anymore. This was about protecting American families on American soil. And that was something we'd all sworn to do.
Maria, I said as the sun set. What's the status on Dorothy and her crew? Dorothy's in psychiatric hold, complete breakdown. She's been rambling about her husband, the initiative, someone she calls the architect.
Bruce and his boys are singing like canaries. They thought they were hired for security theater. Had no idea about the explosions. The architect. Another piece of the puzzle. But first things first, Emma, I need you to do something that might be dangerous. She straightened, ready for anything. Name it! I need you to go back to school tomorrow. Act normal. Pretend none of this happened. Her face fell. Dad, no, I can help. I can. You can be my secret weapon, I interrupted. They think they've scared us into hiding. Let them. While they're watching for my response, you'll be gathering intelligence from inside. How many kids at your school have gotten similar pressure? How many families are being targeted? She thought about it, then nodded slowly like a double agent. Exactly like that. But Emma, first sign of trouble, you hit that panic button. No. Heroics, promise me. I promise, she said solemnly. Then being Emma, she added, but I get to help plan the counterattack, right? I looked at my daughter, 14 years old, recently kidnapped, already planning offensive operations. Sarah would have been terrified and proud in equal measure, just like I was. Wouldn't dream of leaving you out, I told her. After all, you're the one who saved the intelligence that's going to bring them down. She hugged me then, fierce and quick. We're going to stop them, aren't we, Dad? All of them. I held her close, thinking of 73 neighborhoods, hundreds of families, children who just wanted to play in their yards without becoming pawns in someone's sick game. Every last one, I promised. And I meant it. The Homestead Initiative had awakened. Something they didn't understand. Not just the ghost, but an entire network of protectors. They wanted a war. They'd just got one. 3 weeks later, Dorothy Hampton sat in a federal courtroom, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. her power suits replaced by institutional grey, her perfect hair now limp and lifeless. When the judge read the verdict, 5 years for conspiracy to commit kidnapping plus mandatory psychiatric treatment, she didn't even react. She'd been broken by something bigger than justice. She'd been broken by the realization that she'd been used. Bruce Crawford got 3 years, though his testimony helped crack the initiative wider open. During his confession, he'd looked directly at me and said, "I actually thought I was doing something important, protecting the neighborhood. I'm an idiot." "Yeah, Bruce, you were. But at least you figured it out eventually." The real victory came from what Emma's intelligence had uncovered. Working with the FBI, our network had identified and stopped operations in all 12 target neighborhoods, 47 arrests across the country, the Homestead Initiative's leadership structure crumbling like a house of cards, and the architect still a shadow, but we were closing in. After the sentencing, I found myself in a coffee shop with Maria. "So, what now?" she asked. "Back to training Green Berets and suburban barbecues." I thought about it. The last month had changed things, shown me that the battlefield wasn't always in foreign countries. Sometimes it was right in our own backyards. "Actually," I said, "Emma had an idea." Maria raised an eyebrow. Why does that not surprise me? That weekend, we held the first meeting of what Emma called the Real Neighborhood Watch. Not vigilantes, but educators, teaching families to recognize threats, protect themselves, build communities that couldn't be infiltrated by groups like the Initiative. The community center was packed. Tom and Maria were there, of course. Tyler had brought 3 other former operators, but most surprising was the letter I'd received that morning. "Dear Mr. Mitchell," Emma read aloud, her voice carrying across the room. "I'm real sorry about what I done. Prison ain't fun, but I'm learning. They got art therapy here. I'm not good at it. Could Emma maybe give me some tips? I want to be better, not just at art, at everything. Sorry again, Bruce. P.S. Is this a dog or a chicken? I can't tell." Emma held up the drawing. "It could have been either or neither." The room erupted in laughter. "Are you really going to help him?" Tyler asked. Emma nodded firmly. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Besides, when he gets out, he could help teach people how to spot fake authority figures. Who better than someone who used to be one?" I watched my daughter explain her rehabilitation program idea to a room full of hardened warriors and felt Sarah's presence. This was her legacy too, the belief that people could change, could be better. "The opera's Liebe," I said quietly. Emma heard me and smiled. "To free the oppressed," she translated for the room. That's the Green Beret motto, and oppression doesn't always come from foreign enemies. Sometimes it comes from our own fear, our own ignorance. Over the next months, the Real Neighborhood Watch grew. We traveled to the neighborhoods the initiative had targeted, teaching workshops on family security, legal rights, community building. Emma developed a whole curriculum on digital security and spotting online predators. She was particularly proud of the module on how to spot fake cops with Bruce's eager input from prison. One evening, 6 months after the incident, I noticed our neighbor Janet watering her roses again at 7:00 p.m. in December. "Evening, Janet," I called out. "Beautiful night for gardening." She smiled, that fake smile. "Oh, you know me. Can't resist tending my flowers." "Funny thing," I said, walking closer. "Those roses have been dead for 3 months. You might want to tell whoever you're reporting to that attention to detail matters in surveillance." Her smile faltered. "I don't know what you, Janet," Emma interrupted, joining me on the porch, "or whoever you really are. We've known for months. Dad let you stay because you're terrible at your job, and we figured whoever replaced you might be competent." I watched Janet's face cycle through emotions: surprise, fear, calculation. Finally, she straightened up, dropping the suburban housewife act. How long? Since the day of the kidnapping, I admitted. Your reaction time to the explosions was professional. Civilians duck in cover. You went for a concealed weapon. She laughed, surprising me. The architect said you'd be challenging.
I didn't believe it until now. Still protecting them? Emma asked. Janet shook her head. The initiative died with Dorothy's arrest. I'm just between employers, waiting to see what comes next. What comes next? I said firmly. Is you leaving?
Our neighborhood tonight? Don't come back. She nodded, started to turn away, then paused. For what it's worth, I argued against targeting your family, said it was too risky. I was overruled. Janet, I called as she walked away. Tell the architect something for me. Tell them the ghost has a long memory and a lot of friends. She smiled genuinely this time. They already know, Mr. Mitchell. Why do you think they haven't tried again? After she left, Emma and I stood on the porch looking out at our quiet street. Families walking dogs, kids playing in yards, normal life continuing. Think it's really over? Emma asked. This part is, I said. But there will always be other threats, other groups trying to tear communities apart. Good thing we know how to stop them now, she said. Together. Together. I like the sound of that. My daughter, the tactical genius. My neighbors no longer oblivious. My network of warriors ready to defend the homeland in ways they'd never imagined. 3 days later, a package arrived from the state prison. Inside was a new drawing from Bruce, clearly a dog this time, and a note. Thanks to Emma for the tips. I'm getting better. When I get out, I want to help. Every neighborhood deserves someone watching out for the kids. Even guys like me can do. Good, right? Emma immediately started writing back, planning Bruce's future role in our expanding program. Because that's what we did now. We took the broken pieces the initiative left behind and built something better. Dad, Emma said, as she sealed the letter, Mom would be proud of us, wouldn't she? I pulled her close, thinking of Sarah, of everything we'd lost and everything we'd found. She'd be amazed at you, sweetheart. Absolutely amazed. And somewhere out there, the architect was watching, waiting, planning. Let them. We'd be ready, because every Green Beret knows the real victory isn't in the battle. It's in making sure there doesn't need to be another one. The Mitchell family had learned that lesson well, and we were ready to teach it to anyone else who thought suburban families were easy targets. Class was always in session, and the ghost, he never really went back to sleep. He just learned to tend his garden with one eye on the horizon, ready for whatever came next. That's the thing about protectors. We don't retire. We just find new things to protect, and with Emma by my side, I knew our neighborhood, all our neighborhoods were in good hands. The oppresso liber, to free the oppressed, one family at a time. What did we learn today? Probably nothing, but it was fun, wasn't it?